everyone. Welcome into episode 142 here. Nearly halfway through March. It's August. Wow,
Yeah.
I am lost. I don't know what month it is, apparently. Uh, yeah, it's August
When you
13th.
have to cover things like going to jail, it kind of messes up with time.
Exactly. I mean, good lord. Could you imagine being in jail? I mean, how would you know what day it is ever? But yeah, folks, I actually went inside of jail today. I was not arrested. It was for a story.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Let's clear that up. Sorry if I didn't made that clarification.
yeah, I have never been arrested, and I don't plan to be. And definitely after being inside of a jail, and obviously, shout out to the folks over at the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office for letting us come in and uh, check it out. But still, it's definitely yeah. Well, I'll let y'all run that like you are constitutionally required to, and I'm just gonna do what I can do out here to not end up in there, right? So uh, definitely a humbling experience for sure. But this is not a podcast about what it's like being inside of jail. It's a sports podcast because thankfully we are both free men and we can watch sports and we can attend sporting events. Because I'm Nick Hill. I've always from Chattanooga, Tennessee, United States, where actually two certain legends are here tonight. I wasn't actually able to go see them. Antonio Vitella and Christian Moore are in town today at the Lookouts versus Trash Pandas game. And joining me from Americana, Sao Paulo, Brazil is Gus Tomazeli. Gus, man, if I had got off early enough, I would have gone to see Moore and Vitello, but I just couldn't. But thankfully, it's a 6-game series, so.
Yeah, hopefully they stay in town longer and maybe they will stay to enjoy the aquarium. There's plenty of things to do. The Lookout Mountain, definitely. The Ruby Falls. I mean, Chattanooga is a city that, I've been there a couple of times and always fun to be there. And here in Americana, Sao Paulo, Brazil, I mean, the biggest story here now is the city of the Milan newest player, Emerson Royale. He's from Americana, but he never played for Rio Branco. But he was signed by AC Milan, and now everybody keep asking me, "Oh, but did he play for Rio Branco?" No, he did not. He was born in Americana, and have roots in the city, but went to play in early age in Ponte Preta in the city of Campinas. But kudos for him. Glad, always happy when a fellow Americanense, do well in sports.
Absolutely. It's been a great week here in Chattanooga, too, for sports. Obviously, got Christian Moore in town tonight, but also shout out to Hickson native, same area of town that I grew up in, Olivia Reeves. She won a gold medal in women's weightlifting at the 2024 Olympics this year. She lifted 157 kilograms, which is well over 200 pounds. Um, so shout out to her, gold medal. Rumor mill is we're allegedly holding a parade for her at some point, so that'll be a lot of fun. But definitely awesome to have a gold medal from Chattanooga.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the Americanenses representative, the Olympics, did not do that well. Felipe Bardi and Murilo Sartori didn't reach the finals of their respective sports in swimming and running. But congratulations to them anyway. They made it to the Olympics, which is still a huge accomplishment. Because like people tend to bash, like, oh, you came up short of the Olympics, but they are in the top of their sports. Because like I think taking out of football, soccer, and maybe basketball and baseball and hockey, in all the other sports, the Olympics is the highest point in their sport. Like,
Oh, for sure.
I mean, if you take out those kind of like five sports where they have more development professionally, all the other sports like swimming, athletics, running, and handball, volleyball, all the others, the Olympics is the summit point, the highest point.
Absolutely, and that what really makes the last week of the Olympics very interesting because we last time we talked we were in the middle of the Olympics, but now we are here at the end of them. They closed up on Sunday, and I think in America, what we're going to remember from this particular Olympics. Obviously, Simone Biles doing well. The track team doing pretty well. But what basketball did, and it's really interesting because this is their fifth straight gold medal, right? So we're not it's not unusual, right, for the U.S. men's basketball team to win the gold medal, but the way they did it, having to rally from a 17-point deficit against Nikola Jokic in Serbia, having to fend off a feisty French team, and Steph Curry making some of the craziest shots I've perhaps ever seen him make. Um, it, that was just nuts. In a way, like we have had so much division as a country over politics, over culture war, over a whole bunch of stuff that, let's be real, if you go out on a day-to-day basis, doesn't really matter. People aren't really talking about it, but you go online and people are arguing about a whole bunch of nonsense. But I'll tell you what, man, when those basketball games were going down, when that team went out there and performed, got challenged, but they went out and performed. Um, that felt like that was the most unifying moment for this country in a long time. It felt like everyone was watching that team play. And, certain folks who were chirping about how much they hated the basketball team, how much they hated their politics, they went silent over the weekend. They haven't said a word about this team because they know how wrong they were to try to make these guys to the villain, because rooting for LeBron, rooting for Curry, rooting for KD. We've watched these guys we've watched these guys growing up, going against each other, and to see them all come together here at the end of their careers, basically. Because let's be real, this is probably the last major moment I think for any of them, and to do it together, it's special and it's kind of emotional because it's like my NBA childhood is closing up.
Yeah, that's true, and I think it was a signature win by the U.S. men's team because you have to take the things in context. Because now the NBA is being more international than ever. European players are kind of dominating individually. You have Giannis in Milwaukee. You have Jokic in Denver. You have this new European stars. Luca in Dallas. That kind of like taking over the league. So this United States team with all those stars, those brand names, LeBron, Steph, Kevin Durant, Jason Tatum, and others, they felt like, hey, we need to defend the American basketball way. We need to defend the United States basketball, not only team, but the American basketball.
Yeah, I think just American sports in general. Remember a few weeks ago, I was kind of ranting about how it felt like America, the U.S. soccer team, was playing a road game, and every single game it was playing on its home soil. And I'm just like, where are the people showing up to root for the U.S. men's soccer team? Why are we not getting people to root for the U.S.? And this, this felt like we finally were having a team that people were actually rooting for. And, and that's just, and I guess just the feeling for years now. It just felt like as a country, we just haven't coalesced around a single purpose, right? Like it has felt like 2, 3, 4 different Americas. And I'm not saying a basketball team is going to fix any of that, but at the very least, it proves to me that America can still unite, at least briefly, over something. And it just goes to show, because think about this: LeBron and Curry have been compared to each other their entire careers, and KD as well, and they're all competing to be the best of this generation. But the fact they were able to all come together, learn how to play with each other, to basically defend the sanctity of American basketball, because I don't know how many more gold medals U.S. basketball is going to win with how AAU has destroyed youth basketball in this country. The players aren't developing the way that they should be developing. And it's going to be a struggle, I think, from here on out to win golds, because I think other countries are developing their talents better. However, despite how far the rest of the world has come to the U.S., it was still great to see uh, the Americans be able to come out on top here and do it in such a spectacular fashion. It's not that they just won, but the fact when they really had to dig deep, because in previous Olympics, it never felt like these teams had to play at their very best to win because they were just so much better than the competition. I saw a stat about the 92 Dream Team. So the 92 Dream Team, every other team in the competition combined had 8 NBA players. In this competition, the number was like 62. I mean, there were NBA players all over the place on basically every team that you saw. And frankly, I think this team's accomplishment here is more impressive than the 92 Dream Team. And people are going to say, oh, the 92 had Jordan and it had Bird and it had Magic Johnson. Yeah, but who did they play? These guys had to beat three-time MVP Nikola Jokic. They had to they had to literally play the gold medal game on the road in France. They had to win on the road. And that French crowd, you gotta give them credit. They were loud, they were passionate.
Yeah, and they had a superstar that for a lot of people are the next face of the NBA. Victor Wembanyama.
Yeah, and he played valiantly, and I felt bad for him. He was crying at the end because, yes, he's going to get more opportunities at this, but this is the only chance he was going to get to try to win a gold medal on the home soil, right? Because next time, right, they're going to have to try to come and win it on our soil here in the U.S. So I understand why that was super emotional. And then, of course, Jokic gave it everything he had. I mean, Serbia and France, I just want to thank them so much for pushing the U.S. to the absolute limit because it forced our team to play the best version of themselves. And I know there's some people who are mad at Tyrese Halliburton didn't get to play any, or Jason Tatum didn't get to play enough. But at the end of the day, LeBron, Curry, KD have been what basketball has been about for the last 15 years. These are the guys that I've grown up watching, and see them all come together in this way. It's something I'll never forget.
Oh yeah, and also congratulations to the Brazilian men's basketball team. They were eliminated by the U.S. We had a 10-0 lead, which was good, and we made
Right.
memes on the internet that was like, oh, if only we had some defensive coaches in the Brazilian soccer, because we make fun of them. We start 2-0. In soccer, when you start 2-0 in soccer, it's like a big lead, but in basketball, it's small. They made fun of, oh, if only we had a more defensive coach, but we knew that we had no chance of beating US. We were proud of the Brazilian team that made a really good qualifying tournament, and had a really good match against France. Advanced in the group stage, but we knew that we were we couldn't compete to the US. But still, very very good participation of Brazilian team in the men's basketball tournament. Shout out to
And Brazil did get a big win though over the U.S. in gymnastics.
Oh yeah, that was our moment. Rebecca Andrade. I mean, she's probably is the she's probably. I mean, there's a lot of arguments. You have Cesar Cielo, but she's definitely the top three, top two Olympian athlete of Brazil of all time. She is definitely really, really important. Shout out to my big friend Rafael Della Vedove, one of the best soccer analysts in proud to work with him. Also, shout out Jason Warwick talking about the 1992 roster of men's basketball team better, but the accomplishment definitely I agree in 2024 was better because in 1992 you had maybe one European player that was playing for the Bulls, and now with 2024 you have several stars from Europe.
Right.
Now,
And here's a thing too about 1992. You have to remember too. This was just when the Cold War had just ended. Yugoslavia could have been absolutely loaded in 1992 if they were still a country, but Yugoslavia had fallen apart, and we didn't get to see like Vlade Divac and Pratin, Drazen Petrovic play with each other. Now, I still don't think they would have beaten the '92 Dream Team, but at the very least, they would have competed with them much more than anyone was able to in uh, in '92. So it's just bad timing for Yugoslavia.
No, that's true. And he was talking about the U.S. performance against Serbia and France, comparing. And shout out to also my big friend, also really good colleague, Guilherme Santos,
Yeah.
marketing
So
director.
go back up to what Jason said about the best of the engines. So he's referring to Tyrese Halliburton here, and he definitely has a point because Drew Holiday. I still don't understand really why he was a starter on this team because Halliburton's better. He's as Jason referred to, he was the best assist. He was basically the assist leader in the NBA last year. Just super efficient. And when you literally have LeBron, Curry, KD, and Booker, on your team, like I mean, there's no shortage of options. So, and it felt like Kerr that this team definitely won in spite of Steve Kerr, and it really makes you wonder when you look at this team and how they played retroactively. Should we look at these Warriors teams from the past a little bit differently? Like, how much of those wins are Steve Kerr, and how much of them are Curry, and then eventually Curry and KD?
Yeah,
Because I don't know, like Kerr did not impress me at all from a coaching standpoint in this Olympics.
that's a good argument. I mean, of course, and but do you know what's fun? Because what the 1992 Dream Team brought up was the feeling that we saw the best playing together. We saw, MJ, Patrick Ewing, Magic, Bird, Charles Barkley, all those stars playing together, for once. And now we saw that in 2024 because, unfortunately, LeBron and Steph were always rivals. They never played together. But that's the good about having a United States men's basketball team. You have the opportunity for all those stars to play together. And more than ever, they wanted to perform in a way that was like, this is our sport. We're good at basketball because they know how, I'll say they're being kind of minimalized. They're being outshined by the European stars.
Yeah, I mean, Jason points out, like, look at what Yugoslavia could be now. I mean, the Yugoslavian team right now would be unreal. Like, you'd have Jokic, and I believe Doncic would be on that team if I'm not mistaken.
Luke, I think,
Um,
would be that team too.
because I'm trying to remember all the countries that are Yugoslavia because
Serbia, Montenegro. Um, I have to look at.
because it was her Bosnia, Herzegovina, Croatia, Macedonia, Montenegro, Serbia, and Slovenia. I believe
Yeah,
Luca's from Slovenia, correct? Yeah. So you would have
yeah.
Luca
So
and
we have
Jokic.
Slovenia, Croatia, Bosnia, Serbia, Montenegro, Macedonia, Albania, and Kosovo.
Yeah. Well, so some people will tell you Kosovo is not a country, but we're not gonna. I don't want to
Yeah.
upset. Okay, to any Albanians or Serbians watching, I do not have an official position on the existence or non-existence of the state of Kosovo. I don't know any. I don't know enough about that to have an informed opinion. Please stop fighting over Kosovo.
But Jason made that point. Like, look what Yugoslavia could be. Yeah, you would have been insane. National team.
Yeah, but it's unfortunate because like the two players I mentioned, like Vlade Divac and Drazen Petrovic, who tragically died in a car crash, I believe in like 1990. Um, like those two were from rival countries. 'Cause I think Divac was from Serbia and Petrovic was from I want to say like Montenegro or something like that. So
Oh,
yeah,
do you wanna know a fun fact? Did you know that Serbia and Montenegro split up during a World Cup, which they qualified to as a united country? So during the 2006 World Cup, Serbia and Montenegro qualify as Serbia and Montenegro, but they split up in the middle of the World Cup. So that was a little weird because you went to play in a World Cup representing a country that was no more. So that was a fun
I
fact.
mean, the Balkans are just wild. I mean, there's a couple of years ago, I remember Albania and Serbia were playing a qualifying match, and they had to cancel the game because of political protesters.
Yeah.
They invaded the pitch. So
Oh yeah.
just not fun times there in Yugoslavia. But hey, they're producing some great basketball players, um, for sure. Um, in the future for the U.S. basketball team is going to be really interesting though, because LeBron I doubt will be on the team again. I doubt KD will be on it again. I doubt Curry. I mean, granted, 2028 is in LA. It's going to be the American Olympics. So I feel like virtually any NBA player who is able to is going to want to, just because these are going to be the American Olympics. Um, but in 4 years' time, who are the best players going to be on this team? Because I would say like an Anthony Edwards, Tyrese Halliburton should be on there, probably Tatum. I mean, AD, I don't know if he's still going to be on the team by then. I mean, I guess Joel Embiid's technically an American now for some reason. So I guess he'll still be around, although I still don't love the fact he's on the American team. And I don't think he's necessarily a good fit for this American squad either.
Yeah. Yeah, it will be interesting to see what kind of roster in men's basketball. Yeah, but definitely in. I know who's gonna be in the women's basketball team. Caitlin Clark and Reese. They definitely will be there. But
Yeah, well,
even
they
the
were the women's team was 2 points away from really regretting not having Caitlin Clark.
yeah,
I
oh
mean, they
yeah,
only won that final by a point. Let's see. And France was mad at MB because they couldn't field a team full of Africans like they did for the World Cup. Uh,
oh,
I, no comment on that. no comment on that. But yeah, I mean, if MB was on France, do you think that would have changed the outcome of the gold medal match?
I just want to say that. How can I say this? If the NBA history of Joel Embiid in big games tell anything, no. But definitely he'll be an important player for the French team. But the as my fellow colleague Every Bronco, my friend Rafael Dellavedova, and a lot of 76ers fans know, he's not a decisive player when it comes to clutch time.
Yeah, because the U.S. really did not rely on him too much. I mean, he made a play or two here and there, but at the end of the day, it was not, the U.S. still would have won without him. I feel like so.
Oh yeah, for sure, for
And
sure.
MB
Yeah.
needed the America much more than the Americans needed him.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. He's the Carmelo Anthony of this new generation. Like Carmelo Anthony, he will always be remembered at 3-time gold medal winning. It's funny. Like in any other sports, winning 3 gold medals in a row, you would have been, the athlete in your sport. And Carmelo Anthony won 3 straight gold medals, and he will not be remembered for that in his sport.
Nah, because in America you're expected to win the gold medal, but I think moving forward, it's gonna be much, much more difficult.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So it's gonna be really fascinating to see how it develops. And quickly on the women, yeah, make sure Caitlin Clark is there next time. That the offense in the final was absolutely atrocious to watch for the women. I mean, my God, I'm sitting there wondering, man, it would be really nice if there was a female player out there that could shoot the lights out from three and
I
also
wonder.
create offense.
I wonder if that player, maybe you can maybe find her in the state of Indiana, maybe.
Yeah, it feels like both Olympics teams just were disrespecting Indiana. Like
Yeah, so
the
much.
Steve Kerr wouldn't put Tyrese Halliburton on the court, and then the women's team didn't even bring Caitlin Clark
Yeah.
to Paris, which almost, frankly, cost them the game. I mean, and you could argue not Kerr not playing Halliburton almost cost the men a gold medal too. So next time, maybe play the players from Indiana.
And Indiana is such a basketball state. How can you disrespect Indiana in basketball? It's like disrespecting Texas in football.
Yeah, Jason says Cheryl Reeve has an actual beef with Clark with some reason, and he is very mad. So
Rightfully so. Rightfully so.
absolutely. Well, hopefully she enjoyed having to sweat that one out. But Caitlin Clark, I guarantee you, will be on the team 100% in LA. It would be
It-
stupid if they want no one to care and not show up to their games. Don't pick Caitlin Clark. But if you pick Caitlin Clark, people will show up to watch her in the Olympics.
you know, it's funny. If the women's basketball team would have lost that Olympics, the legacy of Caitlin Clark would have, you know, she would have benefited so much for that because everybody would remember that the team that failed without the rising superstar, like, Cheryl Reeve got lucky. I mean, she'd be like, it was more like a relief than a celebration because if they would have lost that final, everybody would be pointing fingers at her and be like, you lost because you didn't bring Caitlin Clark and oh my god, I forgot the oh my god the Angel Reese and Angel Reese too. I think Angel Reese and
Yeah.
Caitlin Clark both
And that's
deserve
going
to
to
be
be
there.
really fun because we all know deep down Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark hate each other. Like that is a rivalry, but it's going to be really fun in 4 years to watch them play with each other. Um, that should be a good time. It should be it's much more interesting than like Brianna Stewart and Sabrina Ionesco. No disrespect to them. I just don't really care too much
Yeah.
about them.
Like
Uh,
the WNBA got so lucky, not only having a polarizing superstar, but also a antagonist that it makes it more interesting because you having a superstar is good, but when you have another great player that kind of antagonizes with your superstar, that's a recipe for success in any league.
Absolutely. And plus, the announcers won't shut up about Diana Taurasi. Like, oh man, she has six. She has six gold medals. And I'm just like, man, they can't stop gushing about UConn players. I'm telling you, Candace Parker was better anyway.
Oh yeah,
Screw UConn.
yeah.
So Caitlin Clark, Angel, and Cam Brink will be so great together. Also, CC loves everyone from Jason. Oh yeah, Cam Brink. Don't forget about her. Of course, she's recovering from injury right now. But man, as I said, those three, and then also you can add Paige Beckers onto that list too. Like those four are going to be unreal together in 4 years.
and
And
and, and, and like so funny, like uh, the women's basketball, the American women's basketball, future looks so bright, but the man's looks very uncertain.
oh and I think that's just across the Olympics in general. Like the women, I don't know what the final number was, but women won the majority of the medals here. Um,
Yeah,
for the US across all sports. I mean, the women's soccer team, for example, shout out to them. And unfortunately that was at the expense of your Brazilian team, 1-0.
but shut
And
up, but shout out to the Brazilian team. They had a really bad group stage. They were almost eliminated in the group stage, like in the World Cup. Marta was sent off in a very stupid play, and she was out for 2 games. But they came back strong in the quarterfinals, eliminating the host nation, France. Then in the semis, where everybody was doubting them, they crushed Spain. They crushed the current world champions. And deep down, I knew it. Everybody was hopeful. Like a lot of people, like I was at a Bronco game, and everybody stopped to watch that game. Like it was a really good rating. But deep down, I knew that in the end, Brazil always came up short. But the Americas, like in '04, like in '08, unfortunately, we just don't have what it takes to win a gold medal in women's soccer. And I feel bad for Marta because that was literally the last chance she had to win a major tournament. She has three silver medals and one second place World Cup, Women's World Cup. She went to four finals and lost all four finals. And she still be remembered as one of the best women's soccer player in the world, but she just couldn't get it done.
Absolutely, and as Jason references, man, this was a cracking debut for Emma Hayes. From, of course, she coached at Chelsea before going to the U.S. women's soccer team. Also, apparently, Jason's mom, for some reason, really hates Marta, and I don't know what the deal is with that. Uh,
Yeah, I want to know too. But Marta, when she was a rising star, everybody loved her. But unfortunately, she got a lot of she started a lot of the woke kind of talk points, and she kind of and everybody got a little bit distaste of the women of the Brazil women's team a lot because of the way the media portrays them as like, oh, these poor women, nobody values them, and we need to shove women's soccer down the throats of all the soccer fans. Like, if the media stop forcing people to watch women's soccer and kind of like led the soccer fans came to women's soccer, it's gonna be way better. But
so Jason has explained why. Uh, so apparently, it was for a fake
ah
injury.
ah, sorry, Jason Warwick, you're a really good friend, but that's called kachimba, and Americans should learn a little bit of it. It happens, If you hate Marta for that, you would hate the majority of players from Argentina. That's one of the that's the quality of Argentinian players. Fake injuries, make the opponents mad. That's called kachimba. You know, I get why I get why Americans would hate players for that, but I understand. I understand the kind of the soccer culture that involves that.
Absolutely, but I do want to circle back around to Emma Hayes because when you look at typical Brazil Argentina
Yeah,
beef, right?
yeah. I had to bash Argentina some way or other.
Absolutely, we love. I mean, you should see the conversations we have when we're watching like an Argentina game. Like a couple of years of weeks ago, they were playing Colombia and they were having rides in Miami. I was just asking Gus. So Gus, why are the Argentines messing up stuff again?
Yeah, and it's their nature, when you have a lot of Argentinian, people together, you tend to, have like a big chance of, a lot of, heated things happen. I won't say fight. I will say, on and off the field. You tend when you have Argentinian Argentina playing any sport, you have a big chance of things getting heated. That's what I'll say.
Yeah, we need to get Javier
Politely.
Malay. We need to get Javier Malay on the podcast
Oh,
and
I would
get his
love.
take.
Oh, no, I wish to have him in a podcast and in my presidency cabinet, but that's another. That's a talking point for another podcast.
Absolutely. Yeah, but on Emma Hayes though, I mean, very, very impressive because a lot of this tournament, the U.S. women's soccer team faced park the bus, super defensive opposition, but the U.S. was able to break through every single time. Of course, Mallory Swanson got it done in the final against Brazil. Your Trinity Rodman got some goals earlier in the
But kudos
tournament.
for the goalkeeper too. She played amazing. She
Oh
had
god, Alyssa
three
Newer.
incredible saves.
Absolutely. I mean, Newer was pretty good. The problem back in the World Cup last year was the offense had no idea what they were doing, had zero clue what they were doing. And that was our previous coach who just was a buffoon. And there's a reason why he got sacked. He was terrible at coaching offense. And also, too, we just had some aging players in that squad, like Megan Rapinoe, who should not have been on the squad in 2023. And of course, had a lot of off the field distractions, kind of like as you're talking about Marta with some of the political stuff. And I do think for the women's team last year that kind of became a distraction. So having a much younger roster of relatively more unknown players I think that helped this team a lot as well. And having a woman like Emma Hayes, who is a tactical genius on the women's side of soccer, um, this women's soccer team was very, very poised to make a run at it the 2027 World Cup in 3 years.
Yeah, and I'm hopeful about Brazil too. Artur Elias, great coaching performance, turning around a bad group stage into a really good playoff run. And he was the right man for the job. I mean, he did a terrific job winning all the tournaments he could as a Corinthians coach. And now I think he's going to do a great job into this new generation of Brazilian women's team. Now, literally, the Marta generation is finished, done, done. She played the last tournament, good. Now it's going to be a new generation.
Absolutely. I think a new generation for both squads for sure. And of course, obviously, outside, I feel like for all the major ones, of course, shout out Chattanooga's Olivia Reese for winning. Of course, Simone Biles ended up with just a ton of medals. Track had some insane moments, some insane comebacks, and some of the relays were super impressive. Shakari Richardson got a gold, a good comeback story for her. And just I'll say overall, this is the most fun I've had with the Olympics since Rio in 2016. Because this felt like the Olympics with all the crowds. 2021 Tokyo just did not feel right. Of course, I don't care about the Winter Olympics.
I think like the Tokyo Olympics was kind of like that we had to have it, but it felt weird. The pandemic was still going strong, and was the first major sports world tournament after the pandemic and all the political turmoil in a lot of countries. And and now with the crowds back, and sports being back as a unity crowd, that's true, it felt good.
Absolutely, just by all the people trying to, cause controversy after controversy, trying to complain that they're doing this and the Olympics is doing that to like desecrate our like civilization or whatever. Like, no, ratings were through the roof for this event. People want to watch something positive. Colin Cowherd made that point the other day, where like people are craving positivity, and a handful of people online complaining about trying to make everything political about the Olympics. Those people lost, and hopefully they continue to lose because Americans, the people of the world, just they want to have a good time.
Oh yeah. And for me, the picture, the picture of the Olympics, the moment in the Olympics, I gonna put it in the screen. For me, the picture. What is your picture for the Olympics? It's that one. That one. What a picture! What a moment! Congratulations to the to Elsa, the Getty Image photographer, and also Naomi Baker. What a moment was captured by this picture. Seeing two great athletes, in gymnastics. One of them, a superstar like Simone Biles, bowing for a Brazilian athlete, Rebecca Andrade. What a moment!
Absolutely, that's an unreal picture. I'm about to pull up what my picture looks like here because this is just one of the coolest shots you'll ever see if it'll pop up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll say this too. Yeah, Jason, shout out the Turkish shooter Armando Duplantis. There's just so many
Oh
cool
yeah.
stories.
Oh yeah, that was a really cool story because he came into the shooting tournament with no extra equipment, nothing. Like he went out, like raw, like Haiz, and he won, I think, the silver medal. But that's true. What a moment! And let me pull up your picture, Nick.
Yeah, Curry shooting over Wembanyama, a man who is well over a foot taller than him. Um, but he still made it anyway. And that to me is the American spirit, no matter what is in our way, was we're going to find a way to get it done. So I don't know. I took some American pride in that team for sure.
Also, interesting competition of the medal count as well. Up until the last day of the Olympics, I think until Saturday, China was leading the gold medal, and then the U.S. came out and tied in golds and won overall.
Absolutely. I mean, U.S. China. You kind of make sense that that's going to be the battle. And China. The thing about China is, you know, they really specifically train their athletes for specific events versus the U.S., where it's much more of a free for all. Um, but hey, that kind of just shows the difference in the countries. And at the end of the day, yes, they're technically the same amount of gold medalists, but we have way more medalists overall. And then you have to remember too, we do a lot better in team sports as well. So, um, not really a competition there. But hey, how about Japan being third? That's insane to me.
It
I
showed
feel.
that. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Um,
I was gonna say the legacy of the legacy of the 2021 Olympics. Was they kept good. That I'm gonna pull up. That's Jason's picture of the Olympics. If he wants to give some context, I'll appreciate because, but that's Jason's picture in terms of moment of the Olympics. But that's true. Like, congratulations to Japan, third place overall. I mean, what a surprise.
I feel like should be a little disappointed. I felt like they could have done more. And I feel like both of their basketball teams losing in heartbreaking fashion to the U.S. really like soured their finish.
Yeah, that's a good point because if they would have won, they would have. Yeah, they still were two gold medals short of Australia, but they came up close of being fourth.
Yeah. He says after Mondo Duplantis
Oh,
broke the pole vault world record and won gold, he posed with the Turkish shooter guy as a celebration. That's super cool. Also,
that's
shout out.
cool.
Also, one of my other favorite moments was Scotty Scheffler crying at the national anthem. That was super awesome when he won the gold medal for golf. I think of Djokovic, Novak Djokovic, when he won gold medal, how much that meant to him because that's probably the last major tournament he's ever going to win.
And it was the last major tournament in his sport that he didn't won. He won everything.
Exactly. And I think that's the thing too about this Olympics. I feel like many more of these sports now are being regarded as major tournaments at the Olympics. And I think basketball is only going to get better and regarded as much more of a major sport as more and more players come around from international. Scotty went to gel and then won a gold medal 2 months later. Well, I hope I get a gold medal within the next 2 months because I went to gel today too. What a comeback.
Yeah. So let me pull up. I like the Olympics website. They divide it in like categories. So in men's, China would have won most gold medals, and Uzbekistan would have been fifth. In women, United States would have been first. So shout out to the American women.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Um, Let me pull up.
They carried.
So yeah, in uh, yeah, I think that's mostly the division. But Brazil, 20th place, good-ish. I mean, we won one in gymnastics with Rebecca. The beach volleyball final. Did you saw the? I mean, the beach volleyball final. I mean, I don't know if Americans care about much, but it was an intense game. Brazilians gave some heat.
Yeah, and I saw it was like Switzerland and like
Yeah,
Sweden or something.
yeah. The Brazilian Duda and Ana Patricia. I mean, they were intense against the Canadian duo, and they won big. So we got the beach volleyball, gymnastic with Rebecca Andrade, and judo. Uh, as well with Bruna uh, Souza, Beatriz Souza, sorry, Beatriz Souza as well. So those were the three gold medals Brazil got, all represented by women. So the women athletes, the Brazilian women athletes, really killed it. That's what was sad. The Brazil lost the gold medal game in the women's soccer. It would have been close up a great Brazilian women's participation. My disappointment with Brazil definitely was volleyball. Volleyball, unfortunately, we're going to a transition phase, and we got a bronze. We got a bronze with the women's, and the men's were eliminated in the quarterfinals. So that was definitely my disappointment with Brazil in the Olympics.
Yeah, my disappointment was the U.S. men's soccer team for once again just being not competitive and getting blown up by Morocco. I mean, you're not even getting blown up by a superpower. We're getting blown up by Morocco, man.
I mean,
Like,
Morocco went to the World Cup semis, in 2022. So they are an upcoming country.
I mean, true, but at the same time, I just, I don't know. It's just there just seems to be no momentum at all for the U.S. men's soccer team at all, and now we just kind of sit and wait on a new coach, and maybe we can figure out something for 2026. But I'm not too
There's still
hopeful.
a new coach. There's still no coach. I mean, that's true. I mean, how
Well, it took them like 6 months last time to just rehire Greg Berhalter.
the U.S. Soccer Federation is just an absolute disaster.
It is. I mean, we need to keep Danny White in Tennessee, but man, maybe we need to loan him to the U.S. Soccer Federation so he can go fix them.
Yeah, that's true. Also, great ending of the Olympic ceremony. The American performers were good.
I'm gonna be honest. I did not see the closing ceremony on Sunday, and I believe we may have just lost him, at least temporarily. Yeah, I guess we just heard none of what you said.
No, I said there was a great ending ceremony on Sunday, making a good transition from 2024
And we've lost him again. But he's talking about like how the end of the
Paris
ceremony.
to 2028 Los Angeles. Hello, I'm back. I think I'm back. Hello, hello.
Yeah, yeah. You kind of again, but I got what you were saying about how it's a transition over to 2028 Los Angeles, which I cannot wait for that opening ceremony. It's going to be so awesome. But congratulations to Paris. Congratulations for France for hosting what it seemed from the outside like a successful Olympics. No major terrorist attacks, which I was certainly concerned about heading into this. But hey, congratulations to them. America, we're on the clock. Let's get ready for 2026 World Cup and 2028 Olympics. It's about to be a wild 4 years in American sports. Indeed. All right, let's transition into some football here. I still think he is not with us right now. It looks like we got some internet issues. We're going to do some. Last time we did SEC and then the AFC South and NFC South. So today we're going to do the Big Ten and the AFC North and the NFC North. So we're going to start off with the Big Ten here. And really, when you say the Big Ten, is really the Big 20. Actually, the Big 18. Yeah, Gus is working on getting back into the show as we speak. So let's talk about some Big Ten football here. Obviously, kind of like we talked about last week with the SEC, with Texas and Oklahoma coming into the conference, the Big Ten is dominated by the invasion of the West Coast. Initially, it looked like it was just going to be USC and UCLA. However, Oregon and Washington joined the fun last year, so we have now 18 teams spanning from Los Angeles to New York in the Big Ten. And I think the place to start off when you look at the Big Ten this year, of course, the defending national champion Michigan is in the Big Ten. However, things have completely shifted for Michigan since they defeated Washington. Ironically, a new member of the Big Ten as well. they are under NCAA investigation. They've lost their head coach. They've lost many of the players that got them to that national championship. And Gus is back with us. It looks like he is working on.
Yeah, my internet is acting weird for some reason.
Absolutely. Well, I guess I've got to have shifted ahead to the Big Ten. And of course, I'm starting off with Michigan because Michigan's going through a lot of investigations, a lot of off-the-field distractions. But hey, they have a national title to defend, and they have a pretty hard start to the season. They have Fresno State, which is a pretty good G5 team, and then they have Texas week 2. And last week, I picked Texas to win the SEC. So I am very high on the Texas Longhorns as they come into the SEC. And for Michigan, I just am not too high on them. Now, they still have Jonathan Edwards at running back, but the problem with them is I just don't think their quarterback situation is very good. They have Alex Orgy, and they have, I believe his name is Wilson, is his backup. Neither one is proven. Neither one has really had much, if any, playing time. And I just don't think the offensive weapons are going to be around Michigan to really do what they could do last year. And it's not like Michigan had an explosive offense last year, but they were good enough with the defense that they had to win and win big. And I just don't know if that's going to be the case again, especially considering what some of the other teams have done. And also, they don't have Jim Harbaugh. And Jim Harbaugh was definitely the difference maker in some of those really tight games in terms of his ability to coach, as he finally figured out how to outcoach like the Nick Sabans of the world.
Oh yeah, I think it's gonna be a very transition year for the Wolverines. I don't expect them to be bad. I I think they're gonna be like a 8-4, 9-3 kind of team.
Yeah, that's what I would think too. I think they're going to lose to Texas. There's a certain team I definitely want to speak to, and maybe we'll transition into them right now. So we can talk about these two in tandem because with Michigan, you have to also think about the team to the south in Columbus, Ohio, and Ohio State. And is there any coach in the country that has more pressure heading into this season than Ryan Day? Because Ryan Day has like a 56-8 record as head coach of the Ohio State Buckeyes. He has been incredible at Ohio State in terms of what he's been able to do on the offensive side of the football. But the one game in Ohio that people really care about is that game against Michigan at the end of the year. And for Ryan Day, he has lost 3 straight. And Ohio State hasn't won that game since 2019 because they didn't play in the COVID year of 2020. Like Ohio State could go 11-1, lose to Michigan, and people are going to be still very upset with the season.
And not only they lost 3 straight years to Michigan, but even the season they lost to Michigan, they could have erased that if they beat Georgia in the college football semifinals, but they came up short as well.
Yeah.
So not only Ryan Day lost 3 straight times to Michigan, he can't win the big game. I mean, he lost in the college football, national championship badly to Alabama, and then he lost in the semis to Georgia in the last play. So not only he's losing to his rival, he's losing in the big games nationally as well.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, probably his biggest win was probably over Trevor Lawrence and Clemson in 2020. But even then, that was a COVID year, and let's be real, like who really, outside of maybe Alabama fans, who gives a crap about what happened in 2020? No one.
I think even Alabama fans don't remember winning that national championship. I mean, they remember 2017, 2015, but 2020 was kind of like, oh, we won. Well, it's not like we won the national championship. Like if you ask Bama fans, they don't have a memory of that season.
Yeah, and for Ryan Day, perhaps his biggest win outside of all that is at Notre Dame last year, and they had to really struggle to get that one out on the last.
It came to the nail biter, to the last play as well.
Yeah, and hey, they do beat Penn State every year, so I will give them that. But still, it's like right now the hierarchy has been Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State. But I will say this: Ohio State, top to bottom, has one of the most talented rosters in the country. They are super talented. I mean, they got Caleb Downs on defense from Alabama. They got Kinshin Junkins on offense to pair with Trevion Henderson. They have Amika Abuga. And one player to really watch this year is Cardinal Tate, a wide receiver. I think he's a guy who could really step up and become another big time Ohio State receiver. And the real question is, can Kansas State transfer Will Howard be the glue to this offense? Can he do enough to win? And also, we talk about some other teams and how much they rely on the transfer portal. Ohio State went all in on the transfer portal this year, as I mentioned. That feels like 3 of their best players are transfers. Is that a strategy that could backfire against them?
Or maybe they will benefit it from. It will be one way or the other. But I
Yeah.
think. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's going to be really fascinating to see how these players, congeal with each other. But these are, top to bottom, the roster is super duper loaded, super talented, and they're going to be favorites in virtually every game they play in, except for like when they play Michigan and Oregon and maybe Penn State. And Penn State's an interesting case study to me here too, because Penn State virtually beats everyone they're supposed to and just can't beat Michigan or Ohio State. Now, kind of like.
And that's why I think the program in the country who's more happy about the college football playoff expansion is Penn State, because they finished 6 top 12 finishes under James Franklin. They have been a top 10 program in the last 7 years, but they, as you said, they just can't beat Michigan and Ohio State. And without those wins, they couldn't reach the college football playoffs. But now they can, because 10-2 Penn State would make the college football playoffs. Let's be real.
And what's big too for Penn State is they don't have to play Michigan this year. They only have to play Ohio State, and they get Ohio State at home. So,
Go ahead.
So I think, for Penn State, that's huge. I mean, and they could be pretty much anyone else in the Big Ten. They do have to travel to USC. They do have to travel to Wisconsin. But, I think Wisconsin's better than those teams.
Yeah, I think, they are a more stable program than those teams. Definitely. USC, they have to rebuild their defense, after finally getting a new defensive coordinator and finding a new quarterback with now that Caleb Williams left. So I think, Penn State should be hopeful this season.
Yeah, and in USC, like, I'm just not sold on them this year, as you said, because they lost Caleb Williams and they're replacing him with Miller Moss. And I just don't feel like that's a guy that has anywhere near the amount of sauce that Caleb Williams did. They brought in Malachi Nelson a couple years ago to be the replacement, and he didn't work out. It ran to Boise State. So I'm just not sold on USC this year at all.
But they have a really good returner, wide receiver Zachariah Branch. I mean,
man, he's electric. He is very good.
Yeah,
you need a lot more than one receiver.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. I mean, he's important, but he's not all offense.
Right. I mean, I think, out of all, the question is, which one of these 4 West Coast teams that are coming into the Big Ten this year, which one of them could do something? And to me, I think the vast majority of people will tell you it's Oregon.
Yeah,
I agree with that. And when you look at they have Dylan Gabriel coming in from Oklahoma, a very experienced starter at quarterback. They have JaMychal James in the backfield, or Jordan James in the backfield. He's a super good running back. And then the receivers are aplenty. And perhaps the most underrated transfer of the entire year, Evan Stewart from Texas A&M going to Oregon. Kind of like Ohio State, they brought in a lot of transfers too. And they also have some guys on defense, like Jabbar Muhammad, for example, at corner, who's going to be really good. And perhaps outside of James Pierce, him or James Pierce could have claim to this, the best edge rusher. Jordan Birch was at South Carolina initially, but transferred to Oregon. But kind of like Ryan Day, and people don't really talk about Dan Lanning as much in the same way, because Oregon-Washington doesn't have the same juice nationally as a rivalry. But once again, he hasn't been able to win the big game. And Oregon won every game they played last year, except for 2 games against Washington.
Yeah, and if you think about it, from the seven the eight the AP top 25 from last season. The program I think which has the best start outside of Georgia is Oregon. I think Oregon has the second best coming back because if you think about it, Alabama has a new coach, Washington has a new coach. I see Texas being the third. Florida State definitely has a lot of things to figure out. But I think Oregon from last season to this season is the second, best program.
Right. And I don't think they're exactly downgraded at all from Bo Nix to Dylan Gabriel. I think Gabriel could be better
Yeah,
than
I think.
Nix.
Yeah, I think they're in the same caliber in terms of quarterback.
Yeah. Um, Now, looking at some of the other teams, I would say this: UCLA. They might be the worst team in the Big Ten this year. They lost Chip Kelly to become as he went to become an OC at Ohio State, which was just insane. Their coach was stumbling through the Big Ten media days. Just no confidence in that team whatsoever. I mean, the only player I'm excited to even watch in UCLA is J. Michael Sturdivant, who's their leading receiver, and he is a great wide receiver. But outside of him, there's nothing to write home about on UCLA. Washington's going to be interesting. They have former Mississippi State quarterback Will Rogers at the helm, and they have Jed Fish, who they got from Arizona to be their head coach. But there's no way Washington can come even close to what they did last year.
Yeah,
And,
I mean, first of all, they have a new coach because their coach went to the state of Alabama.
yep. And we're going to learn all about him in Tennessee, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, but outside of those teams, right?
Also, Washington has to replace their quarterback. Michael Penix went to the NFL, so that was a really big change for the Huskies.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I think another storyline too when you look at the Big Ten is the erasure of the Big Ten West, because the Big Ten West has been much maligned, much criticized for being the worst division in college football, and now it no longer exists. So when you look at all those teams, like the Iowas of the world, Wisconsin, Nebraska, Minnesota, Purdue, like, do any of these programs have a chance now in the modern Big Ten? Like, which one of these programs has any chance of being relevant in terms of just even making the playoffs?
Maybe Nebraska in a few years if they continue in the path they are with
Matt Rule.
Matt Rule, maybe, but yeah, I don't see Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin, maybe, but
I would
definitely
say
right now
Wisconsin out of all those teams, because I like Luke Fickell a lot. He took Cincinnati to the 4-team playoff in 2021. If he can just get the offense going in Wisconsin like that, because he's trying to transform Wisconsin into a more spread offense. And they're going to have a chance here. They host both Alabama and Oregon and Penn State all at home. So they have 3 big home games this year in Madison. I think they could pull off an upset in one of them. I don't know which one they're going to pull off an upset in, but I think they will pull off an upset in one of their big 3 home games. And of course, Nebraska has a 5-star quarterback now, Dylan Raiola. I don't think that means they're going to be great this year, but I think that means they could have a chance to really grow over the next couple of years. And Matt Rule is a coach that has demonstrated he knows what he's doing in college football. And I will say this: this is a year that finally Nebraska makes it back to a bowl game.
Yeah,
Guaranteed.
It's about time. It's about time.
But the key is they need to beat Colorado in week 2. They get Colorado at home in Lincoln, get Shador Sanders and Travis Hunter, and a program that seems to be in disarray from the outside in Boulder. They must win that game. Nebraska, please find a way to beat Colorado. If the game's close in the 4th quarter and you start thinking about, we're in Nebraska, we can't win close games, find a way. Get it done.
Yeah. Yeah, because the Colorado win over Nebraska last season kind of gave the sense that Colorado's going to make a run, which they didn't.
Right. And of course, you mentioned Iowa. I mean, well, we don't really need to talk about the last time we saw Iowa play a football game. We were there, and you weren't even paying attention to them when they were on offense because we knew what the foregone conclusion was every time they played on offense. And I saw this the other day. They had a scrimmage. Their quarterback only threw for 20 yards in the scrimmage and for 3 interceptions.
So you can't figure out your offense on a scrimmage? I mean,
no. Granted, Iowa's defense is going to be elite this year. Iowa will have an elite defense, but it doesn't matter if you can't score.
but in football is different than soccer. I feel like in soccer we always joke like, "Oh, a good team start with a good defense." Like in football, I think the offense is way more relevant than the defense. I mean, of course, you need a good defense to win championships, but if you don't have an offense, you are way, like uh, way farther from being relevant. Like
I mean, Michigan last year did not have the best offense in the league, and not
but
even close.
but they had a good offense. I mean, because without a good offense, they wouldn't even make the college football playoffs. I mean, that's what my point. Like you can have an elite defense, but you don't have a somewhat a good offense. That doesn't matter.
Absolutely. Wow. Wait, is that true? Holy cow. Perhaps some breaking news in the NFL that could be relevant here momentarily when we get to them. See, Jason said disagree. Georgia's D won them a natty because nobody could score. Stetson Bennett ran the offense.
Yeah, but they were still somewhat good. I'm not saying they were elite. They were like a B minus. Like to win a national championship, you need to of course, if you have a offense, you need at least a B minus. If you have an A defense, you need at least a B minus offense. Like you can't win a national championship if you have a defense and a C minus D offense. You just can't.
I mean, true, but look at 2022 Tennessee, right? Like we had Iowa's offense with that D can still win the natty. Okay, I pause. I don't know about that. Iowa's offense was not good enough to take 2021 Georgia to the national championship. Like Georgia, remember, still scored, I think, like 26 points in Alabama in that game. Iowa could not get into double digits. I mean, Iowa couldn't score in Tennessee last year. And Tennessee had an okay defense last year, but let's not act like we had an elite defense.
Yeah, and that's my point. And that's my point. Like that's what I'm saying. Like Georgia, of course, their defense was the main side of the ball, but the offense was somewhat good. They have a defense, but their offense was at least a B minus. Like you can't win a national championship if you have a defense and C minus D offense. You just can't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely really interesting to kind of think about that. How Iowa can even fit in. I think another program too that's going to have a really tough time climbing back up is Michigan State. They have a first-year head coach, Jonathan Smith, and they're having some off-the-field distractions with Mel Tucker. Yeah, so I mean, the whole thing is going to be really interesting.
Also, first of all, what a disrespect for the Washington Huskies. They were the runner-up of the college football, and they were even ranked. I mean, I feel that's disrespectful. I feel like they were deserve at least to be in the top. Like how can Texas A&M be ranked and not Washington Huskies? How?
Well, I mean, A&M definitely has more talent when you look at like recruiter rankings and overall talent metrics. So I think that's kind of the deal.
Yeah, but you're still like a runner up from last year's contest. I mean, I'm not saying they should be in the top 5, but at least rank the team that literally almost won the national championship. Like,
I mean, think about this. And the others receiving votes, I mean, because Iowa got ranked 25th.
Yeah.
So like the teams that got more votes: Louisville, Virginia Tech, Boise State, SMU, Iowa State, and Liberty all got more votes than Washington.
How? How?
That's so disrespectful.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's my point.
Like Miami is 19th.
Why? How? Like,
I mean, Kansas is in the ranking. Like, I mean, there's some disrespect on this list.
yes, I'm not saying Washington should be in the top 4. They lost their coach, a quarterback, and all. But come on, like not being ranked and having less votes than Virginia Tech, SMU. Like,
Do you think this is a reflexive reaction to TCU last year? And remember, they got the benefit of the doubt. They got ranked 17th. They went out week 1, lost to a bad Colorado team, and just sucked. They didn't make a ball game.
but okay, TCU was blown out on the college football national championship by Georgia. Was Washington blown out for Michigan?
I mean, not really. Man, it was a tight game in the fourth quarter.
Yeah. So there's a huge difference. I
mean, this really is a good point for sure. And honestly, I glanced right over them, to be honest with you. I have not given much thought to Washington having any chance of repeating any success.
Yeah, like I'm not saying Washington should be, in the consideration for going back to the college football national championship. I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying is literally the team that went to the finals, like in basketball, the definitely the runner up of the March Madness is going to be considered for rankings. Like how in football, I'm not saying they are in the top 5. There should be at least, let's say they should be 25th. Like they should be ahead of Iowa. Like Iowa, why Iowa's ranked? Like why Iowa's ranked?
Well, because of their defense. That's why they're there at 25th. But okay, if I look at Iowa's schedule though, how many of these games do we think Iowa could win? I'm gonna throw up Iowa's schedule because
I have here. So they of course Illinois State they can win. Iowa State is a rivalry game.
I think they'll win that. That's at home.
Yeah, it's at home.
Week 3, Troy. I'm going to go on a limb. I think Troy pulls off an upset.
Ooh.
So give me 2-1 Iowa. Then they go to Minnesota. I think they beat Minnesota 3-1. They obviously lose at Ohio State 3-2. They come home and host Washington. So we get Washington at Iowa. Mm. So we'll get to settle this on the field. Who's better between Washington and Iowa? You know what? Honestly, low key, I would pick Washington there, 3-3.
Me too, 3-3.
I think they beat Michigan State for 4-3. I'll give them Northwestern 5-3. I think Wisconsin beats them 5-4. I think they beat UCLA 6-4. I think they beat Maryland 7-4, and I think they lose to Nebraska 7-5.
Yeah, they're a 7-5 team. Yeah. Let's go to Washington's schedule. To Washington's schedule to make a comparison. So they beat Weber and Eastern Michigan.
Yep.
They beat Washington State. If it's a rivalry game, but they play at home.
Yep. And Washington State and Oregon State both have lost a lot.
Yeah. Beat Northwestern, so they're 4-0. Beat Rutgers. I'm actually
gonna give Greg Schiano Rutgers that. Greg Schiano Rutgers, and obviously we have a history of Greg Schiano. I literally went and protested against his hire in Tennessee, but to be fair to him, he has improved Rutgers somewhat from where they were. And this game is going to be on a Friday night on the cross country. I think Rutgers beats Washington.
So 4-1, then Michigan, I believe, lose 4-2.
Mm-hmm.
Iowa, we gave them a win, so
5-2.
5-2. Indiana, I think they can win. Indiana, I mean, 6-2. USC.
Oh boy, that's a tough one.
That's tough. It's gonna be a nail biter.
It's at Seattle. I'll give them that 7-2.
7-2. Lose to Penn State, seven and
Yeah.
three. Beat
Beat.
UCLA, 8-3. Lose to Oregon, 8-4.
Well, I mean, is this finally the time that Dan Lannon beats Washington?
Yeah,
I would assume so.
I mean the game is at Oregon. Like, come on, like
Like, there's
the game
no
is
reason for them to lose.
no.
No reason at all for them to lose. I'm actually curious. What would I pick USC to be now? That I'm just curious. So USC,
Yeah, let's go to
LSU, game 1.
lose. Lose.
Yeah, lose. Y-
Utah State win. Lose to Michigan, 1-2. Wisconsin,
Lose 1-3.
1-3. Okay. Minnesota win, 2-3.
2-3.
Lose to Penn State, two and
Yep.
four. Maryland,
Lose
win
2-5.
2-5. Okay.
Rutgers.
You're being very pessimistic about USC.
Yeah, I really don't think. I think they're in for a rude awakening. I'll give them Rutgers though, 3-5. Lose at Washington, 3-6.
Nebraska, 4-6.
Screw. I'm picking Nebraska, 3-7.
Oh, okay. UCLA they can beat. Come
they'll
on.
they'll beat them, and then they lose to Notre Dame, 4-8 for USC.
Wow, 4-8. Lincoln Riley, third year. Oh boy, what a way to start the Big Ten. What a way.
Yeah, so there you go. That might be the hottest take. I think USC is going to struggle and struggle hard in the Big Ten. Give me 4-8 USC. Well, what is their over under? I wonder. USC over under win total. They're at 7.5.
Wow.
Should
go for under. Bet under.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. Clearly, I'm not feeling USC now. Watch them make the playoffs. It made me look silly.
So let's do Big Ten standings. Like 1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, there's
5.
18. I'm not doing all 18.
I'm saying pick 1 through 18. Like what was going to be the standings? Like the order.
Okay. Well, I think the title game is going to be Oregon and Ohio State.
Yeah, I think Ohio State. Both if they both ran the table, they both stay undefeated, right?
No, they play each other. They play each other in early October. But whoever loses that game can run the table. I think those two are the clear-cut class of the Big Ten.
So who's gonna run the table? You think?
If I had to pick, I would probably pick Oregon to beat Ohio State.
Won. So Oregon 1, Ohio State 2. Penn State will put 3. Penn State 3.
Yeah. I think those are the free teams that'll make the playoffs in the Big Ten. I think those are the only free teams from the Big Ten that'll make the playoffs.
I agree. I definitely agree.
Because I don't think Michigan's going to make it. If there's any other teams, if Iowa has any pulse of offense at all, I could see them backdooring their way into a 10-2 playoff berth. Because I think their defense will be that good. But that is on contingent on them completely having an offense. Outside of that, I just don't see anyone else. We didn't talk about Minnesota at all, but PJ Fleck, it just is what it is. He's a 7-1 coach at Minnesota.
But a team that definitely is interesting to talk about how bad Michigan State's going to be. Like, they are in disarray. I think they are the worst program right now in Big Ten.
Yep. Well, them and UCLA are the two worst for sure.
But UCLA don't have the controversies off the field. Like, for example, former coach suing the school over firing. So
it's not good. Good times at Michigan State. Jonathan Smith is a good coach, but it's going to take him some time to fix what's going on there in Michigan State. So
it's like Hypo in 2021.
Yeah, but I don't know if he's going to be able to come in and have this. Because remember, Heupel still came in year one and won 7 games. I don't think that's going to be the case. If I look at Michigan State, I don't know if
against
there's more than
FAU.
four
Maybe
win.
they win FAU, Prairie View, and
Maybe Boston College,
maybe yeah. Is that
like
it's in and the
Indiana
game
and
is?
Purdue.
I don't know. I mean, maybe because I'll give them like 3 wins total. I want to see the over under for Michigan State.
It can't be that high. I mean, it's crazy because this was literally just a playoff program a few years ago.
4.5. 4.5.
Yeah, like they literally just made the playoffs like in 2015 too. They have fallen off significantly.
Yeah.
So, in any case, so that's the Big Ten, and I would pick Ohio State to beat Oregon in Indianapolis. So my prediction is I think Oregon beats Ohio State in the regular season. Ohio State comes back and wins the championship. So far, I think two of the top 4 playoff spots would be Texas and Ohio State as their conference champions. And then in the other spots, I think you would have Oregon and Penn State in those spots. Then additionally for the SEC, I think you would have Georgia, Alabama, and honestly,
Tennessee.
maybe Tennessee too. So.
I can see Tennessee squeezing, like we're
Yeah.
talking the SEC preview.
Because I mean, as Tennessee fans, these are all the teams we're going to have to really be paying close attention to. I think we're going to need to be rooting against Penn State this year. We're going to need to be, frankly, rooting against Ohio State and Oregon to maybe lose some games we don't expect to really weaken that bubble. Because I think it's just a lot to ask Tennessee this year to make the SEC championship and to win the SEC. It's just going to be really difficult. And Georgia, I left Georgia out. Well, I think I might have already said Georgia. But anyway, also, just while we're still on the topic of college football, though, Tennessee announced a big partnership with Pilot today. Pilot Flying J, the gas company, for a big partnership. I mean, Neyland Stadium is still going to be Neyland Stadium, but technically Neyland Stadium presented by Pilot. And there's going to be Pilot branding on the field, and some people are upset about it in terms of like sponsorship. But Tennessee gets a lot of money off of this, and allegedly up to $20 million in NIL revenue that they can spend on recruits. So, which when I heard that, I'm like, oh, I'm totally fine with it now. If Pilot Flying J can buy us some 5 stars, I mean,
And Pilot is such a landmark institution of a company in the state of Tennessee. Like, they are one of the companies in the state of Tennessee. So no surprise for me. And as you said, now with this new NIL kind of world, the more money you have to spend on players, the better team you have. Because with NIL world, it's a Wild West free agency. Like you need is like now with NIL in college football, it's like the transfer market in European soccer. Like it's a Wild West. The more money you have, the best players you're gonna get now. And definitely that $20 million boost is definitely gonna make a difference on the field. So all those people that are upset when those players that the money from Pilot get, then they're gonna be happy. They won't even remember that Pilot sponsors Tennessee. They will remember only the wins on the field.
absolutely. I think Jim Haslam comes in and buys 1 win against Alabama. People will forgive him instantly. So there you go.
Oh,
That's all that matters.
yeah. And speaking of the topic, today we talked about it in the Big Ten, but overall the AP top 25 rankings came out. I agree with the top 4. Georgia 1, Ohio State 2, Oregon 3, Texas 4. I agree with that for top teams.
Yeah, and of course, we also got to think about it now as the top 12, right?
Yeah.
So basically, if we pull up the rankings, so the way the playoff picture would work, because it's going to take us a while to get used to how the top 12 works here. So your top 4 seeds, you would have Georgia at the 1 seed as your SEC champion. You would have Georgia at the 2 seed as your Big Ten champion.
Ohio State.
Yeah, Ohio State. Then you would have to go all the way down to the number 10 ranking, Florida State, who would be the number 3 seed. And then your 4 seed would be Utah at number 12 as the Big 12 champion. And then the way it would work from there, you'd go back up. You'd get Oregon at 5, Texas at 6, Alabama 7, Ole Miss 8, Notre Dame at 9. So you'd have Notre Dame at Ole Miss. You would have 10th Penn State at 7, Alabama. You would have 11 Michigan at 9, at 6 Texas. And then you'd have to go down and select your G5 team, which the
which is
highest Boise State with 47 votes received. So Boise State would be your unranked 12th seed going to Oregon, which is a game we're getting, by the way, Boise State at Oregon in week 2. And in that G5 spot.
It's crazy that this matchup might be on the college football playoff. That's insane.
Yeah, and of course, in the G5 world, you got Boise State, SMU. Well, no, SMU is in the ACC now. Forget that. Liberty is the second highest G5 team at 32 votes. You have Memphis with 16 votes. UTSA has 6. Tulane has 5. Appalachian State 4. So voters believe that one of those 6 teams who are G5 teams are going to be in the playoffs. And which means, for college football fans, there's actually more of a reason to pay attention to the small schools this year.
The more I think about it, it's like the more I think people, when they really get used to it, I think this format of a playoff in the college football, I think it was the right thing to do.
Oh, absolutely. And just think about all the possibilities. But I think to actually make it, you're going to have to be ranked in the top 10. So right now, Tennessee, we would be Missouri would be the first team out at 11. We would be the 4th team out right now, because right now Missouri, LSU, and Clemson would all be ahead of us as teams also out. So that's the way that would work. And also, remember, too, that Notre Dame at 7, even if they go all up to 1, even if they finish number 1 and 12-0, they can only be the 5th seed because they're not in a conference.
I wonder how many seasons it's going to take for Notre Dame fans to be asking, why are we not in a conference and we cannot be the top 4 seeds? I wonder how much the stubbornness of Notre Dame is going to take to reconsidering being independent.
Yeah, they're going to have to join the ACC. I mean, it's
Yeah.
what this boils down to. Because at some point, they're going to have a 12-0 team, and then they're going to lose in the first round for no reason. And when they could have just, gone to a conference title game.
Yeah. Like they did in 2020. Like they literally did in 2020 when they were pushed against the wall, they joined the ACC. So do it for real. Like you did in 2020, you can do it permanently.
Yes. And this format is 100%, I think, going to force them to at some point, no matter how much money they're making off their TV deal. So that's going to be interesting to see how that develops throughout the season. All right, let's do a little bit of NFL here. We got AFC North and NFC North. Let's start with the NFC North because there is some interesting injury news. Jahmyr Gibbs yesterday in Detroit's Lions training camp, he got hurt, has a leg injury. There are some rumors circulating, could be an ACL. Which, if that's the case, he could be out for a very long time, maybe this season. And that would be devastating for Detroit.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think because Detroit is the upcoming team in NFC North. I think the Lions fans, they are through the roof of expectations after the run they had last season. And, but now I think their division is going to be tougher than they were last year because the Packers also, they look way better than last season. Even the Bears and the Vikings, I think the Bears too is going to be 4th place, but they might win some games with Caleb Williams and the Vikings.
I don't think the Bears are going to be 4th place. I think the Bears have a shot to be a wild card team. I really do. I mean, Caleb Williams has looked pretty good through camp, and I think he has a lot of potential to come out and be really good from the jump. And plus, think about what they've surrounded him with. They surrounded him with Keenan Allen, that DJ Moore. They got Rome Odunze in the draft. The Bears are loaded on offense, and I feel like we've never been able to say that about the Chicago Bears, but they are loaded on offense. And if Caleb Williams is as good as advertised, Chicago is going to be pretty good right away.
Yeah.
But I will say this. I at the end of the day, I do think that the class of quarterback right now in the NFC North is in Green Bay, which has to be super frustrating for Detroit because you finally get rid of Aaron Rodgers, and the guy who comes in right after him turns out to be really, really good himself in Jordan Love. And, there's this whole narrative about Jordan Love, this whole argument, like, how good is Jordan Love actually? Because I had people telling me all last year, Jordan Love is not any good. Jordan Love was a wasted draft pick, should not have ever been at Green Bay. But then look at what he did at Dallas. Look what he did in the last half of the year. He was one of the best quarterbacks in the league throughout the second half of last year and into the postseason. I was called crazy for putting him in the top 5. But I can't name 5 quarterbacks I'd rather have right now than Jordan Love.
I mean, of
Patrick
course,
Mahomes is one.
I mean, that performance in Dallas was outstanding, but he still has a lot of steps to climb.
I mean, yeah, clearly he's not a completely finished product yet, but I think the potential he has, I really think Jordan Love is going to be a top 5 quarterback in this league before it's all said and done. And I don't think it's going to be necessarily Mahomes, but he could be in that next tier down.
Yeah, and he was tied for the highest paid player in NFL history with the contract 4-year, $220 million contract with a $160 million guaranteed.
Absolutely. And I think he's going to be worth every single one penny of that for Green Bay because it really is nuts. So we all called them crazy for doing it, right? Several years ago. We've talked about this. Since the beginning of this podcast, since we were back on Rock Solid Sports, we've talked about the whole Jordan Love, Aaron Rodgers situation. But now we are seeing the other side of this.
Shout out to Brian Gunterkust. Gunterkust. He had the guts to draft Jordan Love while Aaron Rodgers was still the MVP of the league, had to endure all the bitchiness of Aaron Rodgers. Now the bet finally paid off. Like, it takes a lot of guts to draft a quarterback when your current starting quarterback, remember, he was the MVP of the league.
He was, and it just goes to show why he's an NFL GM and why we're not.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, he went through the tape, talked to him, and saw something in him the rest of us didn't. So just awesome stuff.
And not only to see the talent on Jordan Love and draft him, but doing so, having to endure all the bitchiness and all the, attitude of Aaron Rodgers. That for me even makes the pick even more valuable.
Yeah, I had to deal with his darkness retreat and everything.
Yeah, all that nonsense that now the Jets fans like myself have to endure. Let's save all my Jets bitchiness for the AFC East. But
at least Aaron Rodgers came out this week and admitted he was wrong about the vaccine, so I'll give him that. But
yeah.
Man.
Let's see if he can play more time than last season. But back to the Packers as well. I wonder how much this new Jordan Love contract is gonna detriment the ability of the Packers overall team, because the more money you spend on one player, the less money you have to spend on the other parts of the team. Because
it's not like Green Bay is a desirable place to live for most superstar athletes. And let's not act like this didn't just happen with Aaron Rodgers. That was kind of always the problem with Aaron Rodgers. They never were able to go and get the pieces around him.
Yeah. So now that Jordan Love's not on the rookie contract, but now in the really, really big contract, I wonder how much this is going to change the Packers' ability to keep a good roster.
But I will say this, too. every team with a good quarterback is having to spend a lot of money on their quarterbacks. So at a certain point, if everyone's paying their quarterbacks $200+ million, then at that point it doesn't become a detriment.
Yeah, that's true. Like, so that's why teams with the, uh, for example, that's why this should be the season, and we're gonna. I don't. I think we talked in the last pod about the NFC South, but that's why even more this season is really big for CJ Stroud, because CJ Stroud in his rookie season proved to be a good quarterback going to the playoffs. So now year two, still under a rookie contract. That's why he should be even more kind of like the season for the Texans.
Oh, absolutely, because they have a lot of money to spend on other players.
And their
Now,
division is very wide open.
right. Back to the NFC North, though, I want to switch over to Minnesota. They lost JJ McCarthy for the year yesterday.
Oh,
So
that's um too bad for the guy. Like, because he came up with such a promise. I mean, he just won the national championship, and oh boy.
so that means Sam Darnold will 100% be the guy now in Minnesota this year, and you have experience with a bunch of Jets fan didn't necessarily work out in New York. He backed up Purdy last year in San Francisco. But, I mean, Kevin O'Connell is a really good coach. And, Sam Darnold's going to have Justin Jefferson as a receiver. I mean, Sam Darnold could do pretty well in Minnesota, potentially.
I mean, he had a good moment in San Francisco when he finally had a decent roster, because the first two teams he played, Jets and the Panthers. Like, come on, like, especially when he was at both rosters. I mean, you can't blame the guy. So he might have a chance to be a somewhat decent. I mean, probably going 9-8 or 8-9. I'll see. I think it's going to be around that.
Yeah, but they're definitely not a playoff team in my view. I think when you look at the NFC
Oh,
North, as we said, when you look back at the Lions, right? Yes, they have the Jameer Gibbs injury now, but they still have a lot of other talented players with Amon-Ra St. Brown. Their defense, I think, is going to be a lot better, especially with Tamarian Arnold being that first round pick for Detroit. That's a huge pick to shore up their secondary. And then I guess the question is, have we seen Jared Goff's ceiling as the Lions quarterback?
yeah, yeah, that's true, because in Los Angeles, he reached his ceiling. Like, because after that Super Bowl run in 2018, he wasn't the same player anymore. So is he gonna be better or worse? That's a good question, because if Ram fans can talk about, like, he was like he reached his peak and then he fall off.
Right, and then of course you got some young talent on the bench, like Hendon Hooker, for example, who, by the way, looked really good on Thursday night last week for a trusted defender. So glad to see Hendon Hooker get back to the field, and also shout out Joe Milton as well. Um,
Yeah, what a
got
performance he had for the Patriots.
Absolutely, we'll definitely talk more about him in the AFC East when we get there. But man, he was electric with that scramble and then the touchdown pass. But yeah, when I look at this division, I think that, to me, I know the Lions have the most talented roster. I just have a feeling the Packers are going to win a division.
Me
It felt
too.
like with the way they played at the end of last year, they're going to carry that into this season. The Packers are going to win a division. And I think both the Lions and the Bears have really good shots at making the wild card.
I think that December 5th game in Detroit is going to be the decisive one for the division. I think both of them are going to make the playoffs, but that game is going to decide who wins the division. I think it's going to be Detroit, Green Bay fighting for the division, Chicago third, but really close to Minnesota.
Absolutely. Um, yeah. And looking over at the AFC counterpart, this is going to be a hard division to figure out because, man, talk about some storylines here. I think with all four of these teams, let's start with the reigning champion, the Baltimore Ravens, a team that probably has been kicking themselves in the face all offseason wondering how they were not the Super Bowl champions last year. I mean, they were the best team in the regular season last year. Remember, they went to San Francisco on Christmas night and absolutely torched San Francisco on Christmas night. And they could have had a chance to play that team again in the Super Bowl, but all they had to do was defend home field against Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City. And they actually shut them out in the second half last year. Like, Kansas City scored 2 touchdowns in the first quarter, and they didn't score another touchdown the rest of the game. But Baltimore's offense just went missing, went MIA. The MVP went MIA against Kansas City. And now Baltimore is coming into the season wondering, can they get back to that point? Can they get another crack at Kansas City?
And also, they're asking themselves the window, the Super Bowl window that every team fears. How long this window is going to last with Lamar Jackson?
Yeah, and now they brought in Derrick Henry, of course, former Titans. It's going to be hard to watch him on another team, but
alas, and they had to. I mean, they had to bring an elite running back because, as you said, their offense went MIA. Not only because of the throwing, but also because of a lack of running game.
Oh yeah, like the running back situation was not good. I mean, J.K. Dobbins unfortunately can't stay healthy, and that's the guy they really have been wanting to step up. And Gus Edwards is not good enough. So Derrick Henry, yeah, he could be the solution to that problem. Now, of course, I've been a Titans fan. I've watched Derrick Henry basically throughout his entire career. My question, about the Super Bowl window is how much juice does he have left? Because, even I, by the end of last year, was saying, okay, I think it's probably time for the Titans to move on because, one, we were switching coaches, we're switching offensive philosophies. He would no longer fit in to the offense that the Titans have. But how much is he going to fit into the Ravens offense when you really think about it? Because, he is an old school running back, a ground and pound back. But, Lamar Jackson is a new style quarterback. I am really curious to see how these two fit together and if they can really enhance each other. But I still think at the end of the day, you need to be able to throw the ball consistently, even if the run game is not there. And Lamar Jackson, unfortunately, has not shown that the ability to do that in the playoffs.
Yeah. Like, everybody's questioning if Lamar Jackson of the regular season will show up in the postseason. Because the Lamar Jackson regular season, top 10 quarterback of all time. Great. But NFL is not the regular season. It's the postseason. And Lamar of the postseason is a meh quarterback. Like, Lamar Jackson regular season, top, elite of all time.
And plus,
Lamar Jackson postseason, meh.
And plus, they're replacing their defensive coordinator, too, McDonald. He went to become the head coach in Seattle. So that's a huge loss as well. Because remember, their defense played as well as you possibly could against Patrick Mahomes in KC. They really did. And still could not beat them. I mean, that's just a horrible loss. I mean, it was that Taylor Swift voodoo magic. Remember when she was at all the stadiums? It was Taylor Swift. That's why Baltimore did not win. But
one thing I want to talk about is the AFC North the best overall quarterback situation, because all those 4 quarterbacks are elite, like somewhat
are
good.
Are they? Okay, like Joe Burrow is in Cincinnati. He's back. He should be healthy. Should be good to go. Now, Cleveland. Is Deshaun Watson really still elite?
I mean, the what he's been paid and what he did not a long time ago, Cleveland fans should be hopeful, but definitely he hasn't shown in quite some time.
Ever since his mind became more about massages instead of football, he hasn't shown any elite talent on the field. I mean, Deshaun Watson has been a joke in Cleveland, an absolute waste of money. In Cleveland. I mean, Joe Flacco was better for Cleveland last year than Deshaun Watson.
But yeah, so if Deshaun Watson go back to his old form with the team that with Joe Flacco made the playoffs, Cleveland fans should be hopeful.
Yeah, like if he shows up, I mean, because they probably have the best running back in the division, Nick Chubb, right now. Well, him uh, Hendrick over in Baltimore. But you know, they, their defense is what carried Cleveland last year, and you just really have to wonder, because he has thrown 14 touchdowns in 12 games for Cleveland in 2 years. Like, that's not going to get it done. Particularly when you're getting paid $230 million, especially when the team took such a flyer to bring you in because apparently you're being such a creep off the field.
Yeah.
Like, just,
I think
ah,
this season is make it or break it for Deshaun Watson.
yeah. Because if he sucks this year, it's over.
Yeah, then he'll be released or trade somewhere else. Like
Yeah.
the this is make it or break it for him.
And he'll be on the Russell Wilson plan where he is now the backup in Pittsburgh. I mean, it looks like Justin Fields is going to be the starter in Pittsburgh, but Justin Fields can't even cleanly field a snap.
Like, but can you blame them? Like Fields and Wilson, like they went to a team that is a very old mindset, decent defensive coach. Mike Tomlin could brag about never having a losing season, but he cannot figure out for his life rebuilding an offensive line. So can you blame the quarterbacks not being able to perform the way people expect them to perform?
I mean, that's correct. I mean, their offense can't figure out how to get the ball to George Pickens, right? And that's really the only receiver notable of anything on the Pittsburgh Steelers. The weapons are, as you said, are definitely not there. Najee Harris is a good running back, but I don't think he's Nick Chubb good or Derrick Henry good.
He's like a really good in a really good team. He'll be important, but in a team that has such a lack of talent, he's overshadowed.
Oh, for sure. So I think that kind of leaves the outstanding question here to be Burrow in Cincinnati, because I still think Burrow is elite. Now, last year was not good. I mean, injuries and the like, but this team still has uber talent on it, especially with Burrow and Chase on the defensive side. And I mean, to me, they're clearly, I think, Baltimore's biggest threat, unless Deshaun Watson remembers he's Deshaun Watson and plays like the old Deshaun Watson, which in that case, I think Cleveland then could become Baltimore's biggest threat.
But for me, just wrapping up the AFC North, I'll go Baltimore number 1, Cincinnati 2, Cleveland 3, and Pittsburgh 4.
I think because I went through the schedules, I think I actually had Cincinnati pulling it off, if I remember correctly. I think Cincinnati's going to come back with a vengeance. I think Baltimore might take a little bit of a step back. I think Cincinnati wins the division, but Baltimore makes the playoffs, and Cleveland is going to be on the edge.
And the question is, my final question for the division, is Mike Tomlin finally going to have a losing season? I think so. Finally,
I think
he's going to have a losing season, and he's done. He's going done.
I would agree with that. So that's sort of the North Division. So I do want to briefly just comment on the Titans preseason game. I watched the first quarter of it. I was encouraged by what I saw offensively. Granted, they played the 49ers second string, but still, Will Levis, did what he needed to do. He didn't miss any passes. They threw the ball down the field. Calvin Ridley looked really fast on the one catch he got. So I am optimistic. Defense didn't look great, but they didn't really play the full first string on defense. So it is what it is. But, and you can only take so much from a preseason game, but I was not upset with what I saw in the preseason. Okay, one last note. I did a couple of quick things for the American side. I did mention Christian Moore, Tony Vitello, and Chattanooga tonight. Didn't get to see them. Hope to get to watch Christian Moore play at some point this week while he is in town, because he's just electric. Wear my national championship gear Which I will say this, I will change this when we get to football season back to Neyland Stadium, but I figured I would keep this up until football season begins.
That's a fair point.
Unfortunately, it's the only baseball championship I'm going to see this year because the Braves are falling apart. There's an absolute mess. All the injuries are catching up to the Braves. Unfortunately, they haven't been able to fix the pitching rotation. Sunday was the real microcosm of this when they blew a 6-run lead to Colorado, really blowing a chance to stay in the wild card spot. The only reason why they're still in there is the Mets also can't win any games. So the Braves and Mets both are sucking hard right now. Neither one really deserved to make the playoffs, if we're being honest.
But a team that is really, really struggling, even though they're leading the division. I mean, the Yankees, okay, they're leading the division, but they lost to the White Sox. They lost 4 out of their last 10 games. I don't have much confidence about the Yankees this season.
Also, the Dodgers. So, like they're only up 2.5 on the Padres right now. That to me should be really concerning if you're the Dodgers, because we know they still have Dave Roberts, who's not had a good track record in the postseason as of late. I mean, they won the COVID year in 2020, but they haven't been able to win in any actual years.
Yeah. And their roster are loaded. I mean, Shohei Ohtani, Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman. I mean, they should expect to be elite. And right now, they're 4 games competing with Diamondbacks and Padres. You know, teams that don't have as much talent as the Dodgers.
Yeah, so things are not looking great there in LA. The Braves. I feel like the teams that we thought would be the contenders kind of fading. Of course, Philadelphia leads the NL East, and that's a team that doesn't surprise me. But I will maintain the position. Maybe the Braves should want to be the wild card team against the Phillies this time, if they can make it.
And man, like my final point in the MLB, Chicago White Sox. I mean, how can they be so bad? They're 42 games behind the Cleveland Guardians. I mean, currently they are the best team in the American League, but still, like 42 games behind. You know, we are in August and they lost 92 games. Like, how can you be that bad? I mean,
we thought Oakland would be this bad.
Yeah, we thought Oakland would be this bad, and right now they are somewhat okay-ish. I mean, they are,
51 and 69. I mean, they're still
they're
only 13 and a half back.
Yeah, they're one and a half games behind the Angels. They're half a game behind the Tigers. They are. I mean, it's crazy to think that everybody's like, how can the White Sox be that bad?
Right. I mean, Jason's an expert on that, but it just comes down to bad ownership. Their owner sucks. Sell the team, Jerry. Sell the team. Free my boy Jason and all the White Sox fans from eternal misery, and give them actual good teams.
Yeah, this rightfully so.
Absolutely. And the last thing I want to bring up, NASCAR is finally back from their Olympic break. And man, did they come back with a controversy. So Austin Dillon, so let me set up the scene here. He was 32nd in points heading into this race. But remember, with the current NASCAR playoff format, all you need is one win and you're in the postseason. So Austin Dillon needed to win. He was leading on the final restart when he got passed on the restart by Joey Logano. And Austin Dillon on the last corner of the race decided, screw it, I need to win. And he wrecked Joey Logano. And then Denny Hamlin tried to pass him. And then he wrecked Denny Hamlin too and still won the race. And he won the race despite wrecking 2 of his competitors on purpose, which is a huge controversy. And some people say, well, there's a history of wrecking people in NASCAR for the win. Like Dale Earnhardt did it. Jeff Gordon's done it. Joey Logano notably has done it. I don't know, but I feel like this might have been a little bit over the edge, especially considering that Austin Dillon does not deserve to be in the playoffs. Austin Dillon barely deserves his cup ride. He has sucked this entire year, but he just randomly had a good car Sunday and then wrecked his way to a win. Very interesting situation. It's entertaining, but I do think it's not good for the legitimacy of the sport. And
Yeah,
it's like in soccer if you like are intentionally tackling people without getting red cards.
yeah. Then you blame the refs, like that's
Yeah, a lot of people
uh,
blaming NASCAR for that. So
yeah.
anyway, but he wins. He is in the playoffs despite sucking all year. So I mean, basically, it's like an 0-12 football team winning the one game at the end of the year, and boom, they're in the playoffs.
Oh, NASCAR should really like just like NASCAR should just accept the fact that racing you just cannot do playoffs. Like do like like Formula One does it. The driver who wins the most races throughout the entire season wins the tournament. That's it. Like
Yeah,
stop
yeah.
trying to put playoffs in race. That doesn't work.
It doesn't. It's too chaotic because then you get stuck. You get crap like that happens.
Like maybe do like okay, do a regular season and then the last race you put the top two drivers and whoever finished first is a champion. Like then you have somewhat a playoff or like a final.
Right. But then that wouldn't be fun because no one wants to watch just two cars race. And I
No,
mean,
no,
unless
like do a normal race, but only two drivers have a chance to win it. So whoever stays in front in that race is the champion.
yeah, but then let's say most drivers have a teammate. So like, what if someone else's team is like, oh, my tire's going down, and they just magically their tire goes down right next to the other driver, and they wipe them out.
So go back to the original point. You just
Yeah,
can't do playoffs in NASCAR. Racing.
exactly, exactly. But let's go down to Brazil real quick, Gus.
Yeah.
I mean, things aren't going too hot for Rio Branco.
Nope. We tied at home, 0-0, 0-0 against São Bento. Was a really tough game, very hard game. The biggest chance we had was the second half, and we unfortunately another game that we just couldn't win. 5 straight games without winning. We're still, if the Paulista Cup would finish today, we will be in the playoffs. But, and let me pull up the standings for our audience and you, Nick, to understand. So right now, Rio Branco is in third place in Group 4 or Group D with 8 points, with 9 points actually, 9 points. But Rio Branco is the only team in the group that play 8 games. So Rio Branco is not playing this weekend on the final week of the group round of the group stage of Paulista Cup. So the matchup is going to be Primavera. The matchups on the Group D is going to be Primavera and São Bento. I don't care about that game. Like both teams are in the playoffs. They're playing for just to play. But the other matchup is Capivariano and Red Bull Bragantino. So in order to Rio Branco to go to the playoffs, Capivariano cannot win this game. So if Capivariano loses or ties, Rio Branco is in. But if Capivariano wins, Rio Branco is out.
And that's never the spot you want to be in, having to depend on the worst team in the group.
No. I mean, that's why on Saturday, if Rio Branco would have won that game, done deal would be 11 points, all good. Enjoying this weekend. We probably would have a barbecue with the roster. No, we just couldn't win, but I still hopeful I'll be at that game. Bragantino and Capivariano will be at in Indaiatuba. I'll be at that game, broadcasting and cheering for Bragantino. I mean, what is hopeful about it is, both Capivariano and Bragantino were only able to beat Rio Branco. So Capivariano only was able to beat Rio Branco at home. So I'm hopeful they still know it'll be able to win it, only tied, and Rio Branco will be in the playoffs.
Well, let's go Bragantino.
Let's go Red Bull. I'll drink Red Bull to that. Let's go Red Bull, Bragantino. The only problem is, like, it's so funny that the game's not even that the game's not even gonna be in Bragança Paulista, the city where Red Bull Bragantino plays, because they're playing uh, first division game, a Brazilian championship game on the same day. So they're hosting another city, and this city is kind of close to Americana. So there's a movement of Rio Branco fans to go up to that game and cheer for Bragantino. Like, a lot of Rio Branco fans came up to me like, I'm going to that game. I'm rooting for Bragantino. I don't care. So the game that it felt like was gonna be with no fans actually might have some fans from Americana going there.
Yeah, I mean, you might as well, right? Like,
Yeah,
try to see if you can have a difference.
yeah. Rio Branco front office is gonna be there. Rio Branco head coach is gonna be there. I'm gonna be there. So yeah, so Rio Branco is really pulling up for Bragantino.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. So let's hope for to that, and we'll see what's going to happen. Now, real quick, Brazilian Championship wrapped up week 20, week 21, well, week 22 actually. Now, last weekend, Botafogo still in first place, even though they lost two out of their last four games. Concerning, and they, uh, but out of the blue, out of the blue, Fortaleza is really came up strong. Won their last five games, second place. I mean, what a job by Juan Voivoda, the Argentinian coach, who time after time again refusing offers from big brands and staying Fortaleza. And now they're in the second place ahead of Flamengo, Palmeiras, São Paulo, which with way more money to spend on players. So what a job by Fortaleza. And so Botafogo, now they're out of Brazilian Cup. They might focus a little bit on Brazilian Championship, but this week is all about Libertadores and Sul-Americana. Wednesday, Botafogo and Palmeiras first round. I'm curious what the environment's gonna be at Botafogo Stadium, because Botafogo fans still hold grudge for Palmeiras because of last year's Brazilian Championship game where they were up 3-0 and then they lost 4-3, and that game spiraled a downfall. They lost the Brazilian Championship. So they want revenge, and that's the best chance they're gonna get it in the playoffs in Libertadores. So it's gonna be a really big game tomorrow in Rio. Um,
Also,
Today,
it could help with momentum and just a championship as well.
oh yeah, oh definitely. I think that matchup with Palmeiras is definitely gonna be important for the momentum in the Brazilian Championship as well. I definitely agree with that, and I don't see as something bad they were eliminated in Brazilian Cup, because being out of one tournament when you're playing three might make your roster less like tired. So that's important, definitely. And speaking of Libertadores, we had some matchups tonight. Grêmio, even though they're not playing in Porto Alegre because their stadium's still recovering from that horrible flood, playing in Curitiba, beat Fluminense 2-1. Atlético Mineiro play on the road in Argentina, tying 1-1 with San Lorenzo. Flamengo tomorrow is probably going to destroy Bolivar. I don't think they're going to have any trouble, winning Bolivar at home in Maracanã. São Paulo tomorrow, actually on Wednesday, on Thursday, against Nacional. Tough matchup. Probably is going to be the Nacional and São Paulo and Botafogo Palmeiras, the most even matchups in Libertadores. I still think São Paulo can tie the game in Uruguay and get the matchup back to São Paulo. And I think it's going to be a really interesting first round of playoffs in Libertadores. Sul-Americana, real quick. Corinthians beat Bragantino 2-1. Should have beat more if they wouldn't waste more opportunities. But the matchup still open for next week matchup in Itaquera Stadium. And that's pretty much wraps up Brazilian sports. And was a good pod.
Absolutely. It wraps up a 142nd pod here, the last Olympics pod. But you know what that means? It is time for some football. Next week, we'll actually have some real football games to start predicting and reacting to as we still finish up our football previews. So it's coming, Gus. It's about to be the best time of the year for American
It's
sports
football
fans.
time in the United States.
Absolutely.
Almost.
Well, from Americana Sao Paulo, Brazil, that is Gus Tomazeli, and from the pilot studio here in Chattanooga, Tennessee of the United States. No, I'm not getting paid.
Maybe one day. Maybe one day. You never know.
I would rather be sponsored by Weigels. And shout out to Zach Bryan, too. I went to his concert in Atlanta the other night. Unreal. Top 5 concert I've ever been to. And hopefully, Nico Imimialava and Josh Heupel playing some important games inside of Mercedes-Benz Stadium, too. A beautiful stadium. I hope that's not the last time I'm in that stadium this year. You've been listening to...
Maybe next time we'll be there will be for a football game that will definitely count.
Absolutely. Because Lord knows I'm not going to a Falcons game. For Gus Tomazeli, I'm Nick Hill. Thank you so much for watching. 2 countries, 2 Americas, all sports.